Your kids can sleep in the basement. I need these rooms for my art gallery. My mother-in-law's voice echoed through the hallway as she directed movers to carry my twin boys' beds down the narrow basement stairs. I stood frozen in the doorway, returning early from my hospital shift to find their rooms being dismantled without warning. My name is Olivia Chen, and at 34, I never imagined I'd watch my mother-in-law, Barbara, transform my 10-year-old twins' bedrooms into her personal art showcase while they were at school. The walls that once held their science fair medals and basketball trophies were now being prepped for her artistic vision. Barbara, you can't just move the boys without discussing it first, I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. This is their home. She turned to me, paintbrush in hand, her designer outfit pristine despite the chaos around her. Oh please, Olivia. Since James passed, someone needs to make this house culturally refined. The boys can share the basement. It'll build character. She waved dismissively. Besides, this is my house now. My late husband James had passed away 8 months ago after a brief battle with cancer. Barbara had moved in temporarily to help with the twins, but her help mostly consisted of criticizing my parenting and reminding me how lucky I was that James had married a simple nurse like me. I watched as the movers continued their work, my hands clenched into fists. On the walls, Barbara had already hung several of her abstract paintings, splashes of color that looked like a toddler's finger painting, but apparently sold for thousands to her country club friends. The basement isn't finished, I protested. There's no proper ventilation, and Max has asthma. Then he'll learn to breathe better. Barbara sniffed, adjusting a frame. I've already invited the ladies from my art circle for a gallery viewing this weekend. This house needs some sophistication, especially now that James isn't here to indulge your modest tastes. I thought about my boys, Alex and Max, who would be home from school in 2 hours. How would I explain that their grandmother had turned their rooms, their safe spaces filled with memories of their father, into a showcase for her mediocre art? This isn't your decision to make, I said, my voice taking on an edge that made Barbara pause. She turned to me, eyes narrowing. Actually, dear, it is. James always meant for me to have the house. He would have wanted me to bring some culture to his children's lives. Heaven knows they won't get it from your side of the family. The casual cruelty of her words was nothing new, but something inside me shifted. Maybe it was exhaustion from my 12-hour hospital shift or the memory of James squeezing my hand in his final days, making me promise to protect our boys. The movers can stop now, I said quietly. Barbara laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. You don't have any say in this, Olivia. I've already paid the movers. The basement is perfectly fine for the boys. They can use this as a learning experience about art and culture. I pulled out my phone, fingers steady as I opened the email I'd been saving. Actually, Barbara, I think you should read something. She waved me off. I don't have time for your dramatics. The lighting fixtures for my gallery are being delivered in an hour. This won't take long, I replied, my voice calm. It's about the house, about James's will. That caught her attention. She'd been so confident about her position, so sure that her son would have left everything to her. What she didn't know was that James and I had discussed everything during his final months. He knew exactly what his mother was capable of. What about the will? Barbara demanded, finally turning to face me fully. The movers paused, sensing the tension in the air. I held up my phone, displaying the email from our lawyer. James left the house to me and the twins. There's no question about ownership, Barbara. The deed is in my name. The color drained from her face. That's impossible. James would never. Not only did he leave the house to us, I continued, my voice gaining strength, but he also left specific instructions about living arrangements. Would you like me to share those with you now, or would you prefer to hear them from the lawyer? Barbara's paintbrush clattered to the floor, leaving a splash of red on her expensive shoes. The movers looked uncertainly between us, furniture suspended mid-move. You're lying, she hissed, but I could see the doubt creeping into her expression. James would have told me. Like you told me about moving my children into an unfinished basement? I took a step forward. The boys will be home soon. Their rooms need to be exactly as they left them. And Barbara, you should start packing your own things. The lawyer's letter specifies you have 30 days to find new accommodations. The silence that followed was deafening. Barbara's face cycled through shock, anger, and finally fear. She'd spent months undermining me, questioning my parenting, and trying to take control of our home. Now, in one moment, her carefully constructed plans were crumbling. "You can't do this to me," she whispered. "I'm their grandmother. I'm James's mother." "Yes, you are," I agreed. "And if you want to maintain a relationship with your grandchildren, you'll need to learn about boundaries, starting with respecting their home." I turned to the movers. "Please return everything to the boys' rooms exactly as it was. I have photos if you need reference." Then to Barbara. "We'll discuss your moving timeline tomorrow. For now, I need to prepare for my children to come home." As I watched Barbara sink into a chair, her grand plans for an art gallery evaporating, I felt no satisfaction, only relief. James had known this day might come. He had protected us in the way he knew best, giving me the tools to stand up to his mother when the time came. Now I had to focus on what mattered most, making sure our boys came home to their rooms just as they left them, filled with their treasures, their memories, and most importantly, their father's love. The next morning, I found Barbara in the kitchen, still wearing her silk robe at 10 a.m., furiously typing on her phone. When I walked in to grab my coffee before my hospital shift, she didn't even look up. "I've spoken to my lawyer," she announced, her voice cold. "James can't be legal. I'm his mother. I have rights." I poured my coffee calmly, adding cream while listening to the sounds of the twins getting ready for school upstairs. Their rooms were back to normal, though Barbara's paintings now cluttered the hallway like abandoned shipwrecks. "The will is perfectly legal, Barbara," I replied, checking my watch. James and I made sure of that. He knew how important stability would be for the boys. She slammed her phone down on the marble counter. "Stability? You work 12-hour shifts. The boys need a proper authority figure, someone with class, with connections. What can you offer them besides?" She gestured vaguely at my scrubs. "This." Before I could respond, thundering footsteps announced the twins' arrival. Alex and Max burst into the kitchen, backpacks bouncing, their identical faces bright with energy. "Mom, can we have pizza tonight?" Max asked, reaching for the cereal while Alex grabbed bowls. They carefully avoided looking at their grandmother, a new habit I'd noticed developing. "We'll see, honey. I might be late tonight, big surgery scheduled." I kissed their foreheads, breathing in the familiar scent of their shampoo. "Mrs. Peterson will pick you up from school." Barbara's eyes narrowed. I could watch them. I'm their grandmother after all. The twins exchanged quick glances, a silent communication that reminded me so much of James it hurt. "We're good with Mrs. Peterson," Alex said quietly, suddenly very interested in his cereal. I saw Barbara's face darken at the rejection. "This is exactly what I mean," she hissed at me. "You're turning them against me." "No, Barbara," I said firmly. "You're doing that all by yourself." Later that afternoon, between surgeries, I received a flurry of texts from our neighbor, Mrs. Peterson. Barbara had shown up at school, trying to pick up the boys early for an art appreciation lesson. Thankfully, the school had strict instructions about authorized pickups. I called the twins immediately. "Everything okay?" "We're fine, Mom," Alex assured me. I could hear Max in the background, probably doing homework. "Grandma tried to take us to some art show, but the principal wouldn't let her." My heart clenched. "Did she upset you?" There was a pause. "She said Dad would be disappointed in us." Max's voice came through, smaller than usual. "Said we're not living up to the family name." I gripped my phone tighter, anger burning in my chest. "Listen to me, both of you. Your dad was so proud of you, exactly as you are. He loved your science experiments, your basketball games, everything about you." "We know, Mom," they said in unison, making me smile despite everything. After hanging up, I called our lawyer, Susan. She listened to the school incident and sighed. "I was afraid she might try something like this. We should file for a restraining order." "Isn't that extreme?" I asked, though Barbara's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic. "Olivia, she tried to remove your children from school without authorization. This isn't just about the house anymore." That evening, I arrived home to find Barbara hosting an impromptu art showing in our living room. Several women in expensive clothing were sipping wine and examining her paintings, which now covered every available wall space. "Ah, Olivia," Barbara said loudly as I walked in, still in my scrubs. "We were just discussing how this charming little house needs a more sophisticated touch. These ladies agree that an art gallery would be perfect." The women turned to stare at me, their expressions a mix of curiosity and poorly concealed judgment. I recognized most of them from James's funeral, where they clustered around Barbara, murmuring about how brave she was. "The showing's over," I said firmly. "Please leave." "You can't just," Barbara started, but I cut her off. "Yes, I can. This is my house, and you're all trespassing." I pulled out my phone. "Leave now, or I'll call the police." The women scattered quickly, their heels clicking on the hardwood floors as they hurried out. Barbara remained, her face flushed with either wine or rage. "You're ruining everything," she spat. "James would be ashamed of how you're treating me." I thought about the twins upstairs, probably hearing every word. About James in his hospital bed, making me promise to keep them safe. About all the times Barbara had tried to diminish us, even before James got sick. "No, Barbara," I said quietly. "James knew exactly who you were. Why do you think he left the house to us?" Her face crumpled for a moment before hardening again. "This isn't over," she threatened, storming up to her room. Later that night, after checking on the sleeping twins, I found myself in James's old office. Everything was exactly as he'd left it, his medical journal still bookmarked, his favorite coffee mug still on the desk. I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a letter he'd written during his final weeks. "Dear Olivia," it began. "If you're reading this, Mom has probably done something dramatic." I laughed despite my tears. He'd known. Of course he'd known. "Protect our boys," the letter continued. "Mom will try to control everything. It's what she does. Don't let her make them feel small like she did with me. They deserve better. You're stronger than she is, even if she'll never admit it." I folded the letter carefully, tucking it away just as my phone buzzed with a text from Susan. "Restraining order paperwork ready. Meeting tomorrow?" I typed back a quick yes, then headed to bed. Tomorrow would bring another battle with Barbara. But tonight, I had James's words to keep me company. Our boys were safe in their rooms, and no amount of expensive art could change what mattered most. We were still a family, even if it wasn't the one Barbara wanted us to be. The final showdown with Barbara came sooner than I expected. I returned from my night shift to find the house eerily quiet, too quiet for a Saturday morning when the twins should have been watching cartoons. My heart stopped when I found their beds empty. On Alex's desk was a hastily scribbled note. "Mom, Grandma taking us to art museum, said you said ok." My hands shook as I dialed Barbara's number, straight to voicemail. I called Mrs. Peterson next. She hadn't seen them. Finally, I called Susan. "She's crossed a line," my lawyer said grimly. "I'm calling the police." Within an hour, we found them at the Metropolitan Art Museum. Barbara had the twins cornered by a Renaissance painting, lecturing about proper culture, while they looked miserable and confused. "Get away from my children," I said, my voice carrying across the quiet gallery. Museum security stood behind me, along with 2 police officers. Barbara spun around, her designer scarf flying. "I'm giving them the education they deserve, something you clearly can't provide." "Mrs. Harrison," one officer stepped forward, "you removed these minors without parental consent. Please step away." "This is ridiculous," Barbara shrieked as the twins ran to me. "I'm their grandmother. I have rights." "Your rights," Susan appeared beside me, "ended when you violated the temporary restraining order we filed yesterday, the one you were served with last night." Barbara's face went from red to white. "I never." "The papers were served at 8 p.m., Susan continued. "You signed for them yourself." I held my boys close as the officers led Barbara away, her protests echoing through the museum halls. She looked smaller somehow. Her expensive clothes and perfect makeup couldn't hide the defeat in her posture. "Mom," Max whispered, "we're sorry." She said, "You knew." "It's not your fault," I assured them both. "None of this is your fault." The following week passed in a blur of legal proceedings. Barbara was charged with attempted custodial interference. Her lawyer tried to argue she had grandparental rights, but Susan presented James's will, my sole custody papers, and documentation of Barbara's escalating behavior. "Your Honor," Barbara pleaded in court, "I only wanted what's best for the children. Their mother works such long hours." The judge wasn't impressed. "Mrs. Harrison, the best interest of these children includes respect for their legal guardian and their home. Your actions show a disturbing pattern of disregard for both." The ruling was clear. Barbara was barred from unsupervised contact with the twins. She had 1 week to remove her belongings from our house, and any future visits would need to be court-approved. As she left the courthouse, she tried one last time. "Olivia, please. They're all I have left of James." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the intimidating force she'd always been, but a grieving mother who never learned to love without controlling. "James wanted better for them," I said softly. "Better than what you did to him. If you ever want a relationship with your grandchildren, you'll need to understand that." She turned away, but not before I saw tears in her eyes. Real ones, maybe for the first time. That evening, the twins helped me take down the last of Barbara's paintings. In their place, we hung their art projects, family photos, and a particularly special picture. James at their age, grinning with a science fair ribbon. "Dad looks like us," Alex observed. "He does," I agreed, "and he'd be so proud of you both." "Even though we don't like fancy art?" Max asked. I pulled him close. "Especially because you're exactly who you are." 6 months later, we received a letter from Barbara. Inside was a check for all the money she'd spent trying to convert the house into her gallery and a handwritten note. "Dear Alex and Max, I'm sorry for trying to make you into something you're not. Your father was perfect exactly as he was, and so are you. If you're willing, I'd like to come to your next basketball game, just to watch, nothing more. Love, Grandma." I let the boys decide. They chose to give her a chance on their terms. She came to the game, sat quietly in the back, and cheered when they scored. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The house is truly ours now, filled with the noise and mess of 2 growing boys. Their rooms remain their sanctuary, decorated with their treasures and their dreams. And on my desk sits James's letter, a reminder that sometimes protecting our children means standing up to family, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. Because in the end, love isn't about control or culture or grand gestures. It's about accepting people for who they are and giving them the space to grow into who they're meant to be.